In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a time tracking system from scratch, which you can integrate within your project management system. Now, this will be the first in a two-part series where I basically go over how you can automate your payroll for different freelancers in your agency. We're going to be building this platform completely from scratch and setting up all the relevant automations to create a fully functional time tracking systems integrated within a project management system. The first thing I want to do is actually go over the requirements for this project. So there's three main things. The first thing is I want a time tracking system to allow employees, but more specifically our contractors, like appointment setters, customer success managers, general VAs, or just basically anyone that's on an hourly rate to track the time they actually work in your agency, helping out your clients, or just directly the agency. The second thing we need is the ability for these contractors to come in and easily start and stop the amount of time they're tracking when working on a specific task. And lastly, I want to give these contractors a clear overview on their specific metrics, how much time they're working on different things, as well as providing admins an ability to track the different hours of the amount of people that they're actually looking after. Now, to do all of this, we're going to be building a custom tool from scratch. Now, before you run to the comments, let me know how many time tracking tools already do this kind of work. I already know. The main purpose of this video, I want to show you how much functionality you can actually add to these internal tools with the hopes that hopefully you can create something that's fully functional and fully custom to your specific needs, such as a complete operating system that you can easily integrate within your agency without having to switch between 10 different pieces of software every single day. Now, to do all of this, we're going to be using NoLoco. If you don't know what NoLoco is, it's just a no-code app builder. It's the one that we use for every single one of our clients, and I couldn't recommend it enough. If you've seen any of my channel before, you want to see in these hour-long plus videos of me building out these custom things from scratch. And whilst we're building the time tracking components from scratch, I won't be building the actual project management side of things. What I'm simply going to do is use one of the templates that I already have just to show you how easy it would be to integrate this within an existing project management system. So let's get an idea of what we're starting off with. Within the logo, I went ahead and chose the time tracking template, which, by the way, if you guys want access to, you can get that using the first link in the description, join the community, and within there you'll be able to access any of the resources from this video. So if you want the exact template I use, for example, just check it out below. But within the project management system, we have this page right here. So you can track all different work items, depending on who's actually assigned to them, different calendar things, my profile, internal team, nothing special. What I basically want to be able to do here is within the individual ticket pages, so the different work items they're actually creating, I want to be able to have some sort of functionality where an employee can simply press a button here, similar to this edit button in the top right hand side, and start a work session. Then I want to be able them to stop a work session, and I also want different pages to kind of summarize the data, how much time to work on specific items, how much time to work on specific projects, and also more importantly, if I switch over to an admin view, because at the moment I've logged in as a team member or an amateur, I guess, I want the managers to be able to track the different hours that their employees or the people that they're looking after are actually completing. So we've got quite a lot to build today, but the good news is we don't have to start from scratch. So hopefully this video shouldn't be longer than an hour, but we'll see how things get. I don't want to hide anything from you guys. But guys, the most important part of any internal application, at least from the ones that you're building in applications like NoLoco, is the database. Because at the end of the day, all these applications are doing is just restructuring the data. So what we need to do here is basically amend the database. And a database is made up of three different things: database tables, records, and fields. A database table will be something like the employees table, where you have a collection of every single one of the employee records. An individual record would be an individual employee, for example, which has a number of fields. And lastly, we have a field, which is an individual piece of data for an individual record. So if I go back to an employee example, the employee table will be the table where all the different employees are stored. An individual employee will be one record, and then a field would be something like the employee name or the employee number, where you're tracking one individual piece of data within the actual record. Now, thankfully enough, like I said, we are starting with that template. So if I go back here for a second and I go over to data, you can see all these different items have already been loaded up for me. And once again, this is just straight from the template, guys. I can't claim any of this. But once again, if you go back to the example, we have the project, which is a table. We have the individual records, which is an individual project. And then we have the individual fields, which is just a piece of data for each record. This is already preloaded in terms of project management tool. I mean, you can start using this right now, but that's not really what we're after. We're here to create a time tracking system. So in order to do this, there's a couple of things that we actually need to add to this system to actually make it functional. And the first thing is a database to actually track the amount of time that's actually being spent on different tasks. Now, in order to do this, I need to add a time tracking table. And there's a couple of things I want to track here. Firstly, I want a description of the actual time, so users can come in and add a description of what they spend time doing. I need a start time, an end time, a total time, which is basically just a calculation between a start time and end time, We need an assigned project so we can assign these different time tracking intervals to projects. We need to assign tasks so we can assign these time tracking intervals to the specific tasks. And then we need to assign employee. Because remember, the people who are actually going to be using this are our employees. So in order to actually do that, we are going to go ahead and actually build this within the existing database. So let me go back to the local and I want to showcase this live for you guys so you have an idea of how to do this by yourself. What I'm going to do is add a new source. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of different sources available. You have Airtable, Google Sheets, SmartSuite, Xano, and a couple ones that are locked for enterprises plan. And the amount of options is very important, but in this example, I'm just going to keep it simple and go straight to the local tables. And in this example, I want to build a time tracking table. Now, I can preload it with some fields, but I'd rather start from scratch. I'll give you guys a complete overview. So let's go ahead and create individual fields. To do that, I'm going to press the new field button and I'm going to start filling the fields one by one. First thing going to be the description, which if I go over to text, I'm going to leave it as long text and I'm not going to put this field as unique. Next, I need a start time. So I'm going to put a new field. The field name is going to be start time. And if I scroll down, it's going to be a date. And most importantly, it's going to be a date and a time. I had a field. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the end time. So for the field type, I'm trying to choose date. I'm going to scroll down to actually go for date and time again. And then this will, I guess, be interesting. I need to actually input the total time. Now, the total time is a simple calculation between the difference between the end time and the start time. So for the field name, I'm going to enter total time, sorry. And then for the field type, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and enter a lovely little formula. Now, I could do this by myself, however, Noloco has got a new AI formula builder. So for example, here I can put in time difference in minutes between start time and end time if end time or start time is empty, leave blank. And let's see if this actually works. I found quite a lot of success with it, to be honest. So we'll go ahead and press generate. And that should make a formula for me, take away a lot of the heavy lifting. There you go. So it's gone ahead and actually made the difference between the start time and end time. Now let's just go double check that. So what we're going to do is press cancel. I'm going to add this field and I'm going to just create a new record. I'm going to create a test record, right? Just to make sure we got the formula right. By adding a new record, I'm going to add a random description. For the start time, I'm going to put Sunday at midnight. And then for the end time, I'm going to put Sunday the 1st. And I'm going to make it a 1 hour and 30-minute session. So the result should be 90 minutes in the end time principle, which total time seems to be empty right now. So let's just double check where this formula actually went wrong. I think it's just slightly overcomplicated it. So we don't need all of this, because most of the time it's not in days. I'm just going to enter this formula that I made the other day actually. We come here, paste that in. I just need to change this with the end time, change this with the start time. Then same exact thing for the minutes. Just change this to end time, then change this to start time. So now theoretically this should work. So let's go ahead and press save on that, and you can see now it's 90. So now we got a formula sorted out. A bit more complicated, but still nothing too complicated just yet. We've got most of the fields. The only thing I want to add here now is the linked records. Now, linked records are basically how you connect a bunch of different tables together. So, for example, every project would have a linked employee or a linked client. Every task would have a linked project, right? You're just connecting different types of tables together because in reality, they are connected. So within the time tracking field, let me just share this with you guys so you can actually see. I'm going to create a new field, and the first one's going to be my assigned project. And for the field type, I'm going to scroll all the way down to a link to another record. I'm going to choose project. And I'm going to allow link in multiple records. And for the name I want to appear on the project table, I'm going to put assigned time tracks, right? Not too complicated. I'm going to go ahead and add that field. And as you can see here now, for example, if I wanted to assign this specific time session to a specific project, all I have to do is press the assign project field, and here I can add one of the projects. And if you go over to the project table and scroll all the way to the right for the assigned time tracks, you can see that's automatically been linked as well. So I'm just going to repeat that now for the assigned tasks and also for the assigned clients. So the first thing is going to be assigned tasks, which in this example, they call it work items. So I'm just going to rename this work items, keep it fluent. And then for the field type, once again, I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom, link to another record, and then that record is going to be a work item. And then for the assigned, I'm going to put assigned time tracks, and I'm going to allow the multiple records to actually be linked. The last thing I want to do is actually assign an employee. So for this, I'm going to put assigned employee or workers, once again, just to keep it fluent with what they already called it. And for the field type, I'm going to scroll down to linked on a record, and it's going to be the workers record. I'm going to allow for multiple items. I'm going to put assigned time tracks. Cool. Now, as we build the rest of the database, you might have to add a couple more fields to the actual databases. But for now, I'm very happy with this. It's time to move on to the next step. So now that we've actually gone ahead and edited all the database side of things, at least for now, I'm happy with it. So I want to move on and actually begin adding some functionality to this project management tool. Like I said, in this example, I'm just building off the existing template. And so far, I'm not too disappointed with it, in all honesty. I mean, this is a great starting place. But the one cool thing that I really care about is within my work item specifically, if I go over to an individual work item, you can see the work can come in and see all this information. However, not all of this is relevant to time tracking. So what I'm actually going to do is edit this and add a functionality to firstly track the amount of time the employees actually spend on this individual project. And then I want to add some functionality to it, such as start and stop buttons, so they can actually come in, start different work sessions, stop different work sessions, and just be alerted when a work session is actually active. Now, this is going to be one of the two sides of this I'm going to be doing. The first side of this is going to be from an employee level. So an employee can basically come in, edit this information, and track different time he's actually spending on a specific task. But the second thing I want to do when I finish this off is do the exact same thing, but for admins. The only difference for admins is they will be able to see everyone's time tracking, make sure everyone's spending the right amount of time on different things, make sure no one's falling behind. So yeah, that'll be the next part of it. But for now, let's focus on the employees, or the contractors, I should say. And don't forget, guys, the whole reason we're doing this is so in next episode, which I should be releasing next week, or depending on how this video does. And the aim of this is to be able to sum these different hours up, and every single one month or on a bi-weekly basis to be able to automate the actual payroll of paying out your different contractors who are charged on an hourly basis. So imagine this in your agency for your appointment setters, DM setters, different things like that. There's so much you can actually do with this. I'm super excited to actually get this series recorded. It's been in a pipeline for a very, very long time. But for now, let's go back to the local and actually begin adding this functionality to the actual platform. So the first thing I'm going to do is press this little edit button right here. And within this individual work item page, I'm going to scroll down and create another tab. Now, this tab is when I'm going to be focusing on most of my energy on. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually move myself out of the way first, so you guys can actually see properly. So I'm going to move myself all the way over here for now and make myself a bit smaller as well, just so you guys can see properly, right? So within this actual individual kind of work item page, I'm going to add another tab, which I've already done, and I'm just going to go ahead and rename this to time tracking. Perfect. Now I can add an icon if I want, but for now I'm going to leave it for now. This is a time tracking page. This is what we'll be building everything off of. So the first thing I want to do, just to make it very, very simple, is add a collection. And within that collection, for the list type, I'm going to scroll down and add the time tracking table. Now, at the moment, this is going to show us every single one of the time tracks, so we don't really care about. We just want to see the ones for this specific project. So first, I'm going to go ahead and put this as a table. And then in terms of options, for relative filter, I'm going to set assign time track selection. So now there's no items that can be found because there's no time tracks actually associated with this individual record, right? This is fine. Let's go ahead and hide that. But if I go back to my data, for example, and I create a new one, and let's see which task that actually was for the tested circuits junction. So I go to data, time tracking, add a new record. The description, I can put it like this. Start time, we'll leave it like that. And for assign work items, I put the tested circuit junctions and press save. Now, if you go back to application, you'll be able to see the item there. All I did here was set up a very simple filter so that the only time tracks we see in that individual ticket page or the individual task page is the ones that are actually associated with that task. Nothing too complicated, guys. Now, if I go back to my application, this is cool to give us an overview, but in all honesty, we don't really care about this. We want to actually add the functionality. So in order to do that, I'm going to be adding two buttons. And to do that, I'm going to go over all the way here to action buttons. I'm going to press plus. And the first thing on button I actually want to have is a start button. So I'm going to change this to green and rename this to start. Now, this is what employees are actually be pressing to actually start their work logs. So the first thing I want to actually allow when we're doing these is to actually create a new record. So for that, I'm going to go over to actions right here in the bottom right hand side, add the new action. And the first thing I needed to do is create a new record. Now, I wanted to create a new record, more specifically, a assign time track collection record. And there's a couple more fields I need to edit here, right? So for here, I want to edit the start time. I want to edit the assigned project, and I want to edit the assigned worker along with the description. Now, for the start time, it's going to be automatically set to the time that the employee actually pressed this. So I'm going to make this a hidden field, and for the field value, I'm going to enter this as a relative date by pressing this button, go over to today's date, and then press now. Then for the rest, I'm going to make them mandatory. So I'm going to put the description first to add some context to what the employee is actually doing. And for this, I'm going to make it required. And also in terms of the actual field inputs, I'm going to put it as a rich text editor and update this to Markdown just to make it a bit cleaner. Then for the assigned project, it should be automatically set to the project that this task is actually assigned to. So for the default value, I'm going to go over and choose the work items, project, and then project ID. So that'll be automatically set. Lastly, for the assigned worker, I want to be able to automatically set the employee that's actually logged in. So I don't want different employees to start different time tracks for someone else by accident. So in order to actually do this, I'm going to limit the options that the employee has to actually set. So I'm going to go to the options filter and I'm going to put up my work items or logged in user and assigned work and collection. So now they'll only be able to choose different people that are actually assigned to. So if I go over here and just give an example what this ticket would look like, and I go ahead and press start, you can see first I get a description, then I get the assigned project, which is automatically assigned to the project that the ticket is actually assigned to. And then for assigned worker, if I try to choose someone, I can only choose Bonnie Low, which as you can see, if I cancel this for a second, is the person I'm actually logged in. If I were to change to someone else, then that'll be a different task that we're actually doing. So let's go ahead and set this to Bonnie Lou, and then we'll press confirm. We'll add a quick description actually, testing for YouTube, press confirm, and that should go ahead and automatically create a record which is related to the tasks, as you can see. Now, this is cool, but there's two things that are still missing. First is a stop button. Right now, we have no way to actually end this individual time tracking session. And the second thing I'm missing here is an indication that there is an active work session. Now, what I don't want to do is have employees just start a bunch of different work sessions with no real end time. So what we're going to do here now is firstly add a stop button, and then we're going to make it very, very clear to the employee that they already have active work session. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing I'm going to do is add another action bar. I'm going to go back to the edit button, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down, press the plus button, and here I'm going to be adding a stop button. Now, once again, the whole purpose of this is to stop them, to allow them to stop the actual work session. So I'm going to scroll down to danger to make it very, very clear. I need them to stop exactly what they're doing. And this is where it starts to get not too tricky, but a bit more complicated. Now, the easiest way to do this would be to have a field similar to what we showed before, a list of all the active tickets, and for the employee to choose a specific ticket. Even though that is easy, I wouldn't say that's really functional. So we don't really want to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is set up a workflow on the back end that automatically tracks any active time tracking sessions for an individual work item. If this sounds like gibberish, just stay with me. It'll make sense in a second. So what I want to do is go over to the workflows section. And for the workflows, I want to create a new workflow. So for this, I'm going to press the plus button and go over to work items. And then for work items, the trigger of this is going to be an on-demand button, trigger by action button, which we're going to create in a second. I'm going to go ahead and add the action. And here I want to choose for every item in the list, do ... And then for that, I firstly want to choose the list, which is my trigger. And for the trigger is assign time tracks collection. And then the second step here, I guess, is adding a filter, because I don't want to process every single piece of information. I only want to process the piece of information that have a start time and not an end time. So what I'm going to do here is choose the actual filter, which is only continue if. And the first field I'm going to trigger this by is the start time. So for this, I'm going to go over to step 1 and choose the start time. And then for the condition, I'm going to put is not empty, because if it's not empty, that means the start time exists. However, this is not really relevant unless we actually include the fact that we actually need it to not have a stop time. So for this, I'm going to press an and filter or an and condition. Once again, select step 1 and this time choose end time. And then for the condition, this time is going to be is empty. So now we're only going to allow records to continue if they have a stop time and not an end time, which will be very, very important and very in a second. The second thing we want to do now that we process these records is we want to be able to basically update the work item with a specific ID. Now, before I continue this, let me quickly go over the data. And then for work items, I'm going to add a field called open time ID. And this is going to be text, single line text. I'm going to go ahead and add that field. And if you go back to our workflow for a second, and open up that same workflow we were just working on. For this action now, I want to go ahead and update a record. And the record I'm actually going to be updating is the work item record that's associated with that specific task. So for that, I'm going to go over to the trigger, and the trigger is actually going to be the ID of the actual automation. The last thing I want to do is edit the field. So if I scroll all the way down to work and open time ID, And all I'm going to do here, guys, is for step 1 is add that UUID from step 1, just like that. So what I've basically done here, guys, is that every single time I press that start button or you created a second go within individual project pages, it's going to run this workflow and then automatically update that time tracking ID with the specific ID of the tasks. So I'm going to go ahead now and actually turn this on. And for a second, I'm just going to go back to our app. And for this page, in terms of the start button, I'm going to edit this so that it doesn't just create a record, it also runs at demand. So I'm going to choose select type, run on demand workflow, and I'm going to choose that workflow items 1. Press done. So let's go ahead and actually test this, guys. If I go ahead and press start, I'm going to add testing #2 for the description, and then assign workers, I'm going to choose myself again. And if I go ahead and firstly, I want to cancel this one. I'll actually leave it as that. And if I go ahead and actually submit this, then the automation should run if everything goes well. And now we should have that indication in the individual ticket item. So if I go over to data and I go over to work items, just double check this, guys. I scroll all the way to the right and you can see for the open time ID, I've got a unique record of the time tracking that's not empty. This is very important because now when we actually create a stop functionality to help us basically stop the individual tasks, we can actually be able to do that. So in order to actually inhibit that, and once again, I want to go over to workflows and then I'm going to create a new workflow, and this one's going to be the end of the actual ticket. So this time is going to be the work items again, and then I'm going to rename this to work to ticket 2, whatever, and then end. Cool. And this is once again going to be pressed by on demand trigger by an action button. So I'm going to add another section here, and what we're going to do here is add once again for each item a list, and we're going to add a filter just by going over to the assign time tracks, because once again we don't want to process this if it's not an active ticket. So I'm going to add a step, and the step 2 is going to be to only continue if, and similar to last time, yeah, it's going to be step 1 start time is not empty, and step 1 end time is empty. And then I'm going to add another step. And all we're doing here is basically updating a record. We're just adding the end time, which is basically now. So for this, I'm going to go over update the record. For the actual collection, it's going to be the time tracking table. And the actual ID is going to be the ID in the actual trigger by going over to assign tracks collection. Or sorry, going over to the trigger, scrolling all the way down. And for the actual record ID, I'm going to press that, go over to step 1 and add in that ID right there. And then for fields, all I want to update is the end time. And for the end time, I'm going to put relative dates, today's date, now. So now I should automatically end it. However, I don't want to end it there. I also want to update the time tracking to remove that open work ticket field that we removed a second ago. So for action, I'm going to go over again to update a record. For the collection, this time is going to go work items. And for the record ID, I'm going to put the record ID from the actual trigger. And for the fields, I'm going to go scroll all the way down to open time ID. And I basically want to remove it. So I'm going to put utility values and put empty value. So now that's basically going to update it. And once again, we can test this by pressing done, turning this on live. If I go back to my application quickly, press edit, and then for the stop button, the action is just going to be to run that on-demand workflow, similar to what we did last time for the start button, and the workflow is going to be the end. Press done. Guys, this is very exciting stuff. If we go ahead and press done now, we can see that confirm button. You can obviously add some text here, which we will in a second. I press confirm, and it should automatically update that end time with today's time and date, obviously. So it's loading. As you can see, it's going to have updated both of them, and now we have a clear indication of how long we actually spent. So for this one, it was 4 minutes. For this one, it was 10 minutes. There you go, guys. It can't get better than that. Now, all jokes aside, we've done really good progress. The only thing I want to add here, we've added the functionality. I'm obviously going to clean it up a bit, but then I want to add in that ability to have a clear indication of when there's an active ticket. And then also I'm going to add that functionality for different admins so they can easily track exactly what's going on. So let's go ahead and do that. So firstly, within the individual project ticket, let's do something very smart. Let's only show the start and stop times when they actually need to be used. So for example, the stop sign should only be seen when the open work ID, which is the field we created a second ago in the work item page, is empty. So if I scroll all the way down to stop time, it's not empty. So if I go over to the individual project page, in order to set the filters for when something is empty or not, I'm going to go over to visibility and I'm going to add a custom rule so that the actual work item open ID is not empty. So the stop button now will only actually appear once the work item ID is not empty, which basically means there's active tasks, which is when that stop type I want to use. In terms of the start button, we're basically going to do the opposite. So I'm going to scroll over to my work items, go over to open time ID, and then put is empty because that means there is no active project. So you need to use the start button to actually create a new project. So perfect. So if I go ahead and press done now, for example, you can see now we can only see the start button, which I don't believe is entirely right. So let's go figure out what actually happened. So first thing for the work items, if I scroll all the way to the right, you can see there's no open ID. So I think we just kind of got our configuration wrong. So what I'm going to do instead is for the start button, it should be, it only opens, no, if it's not empty, and if it is empty, there you go. So I think there was a glitch in the system probably. The start button is there, and if I go ahead and start a new project, and we'll call this testing 4 or whatever, testing 3, however long it's been, assign workers assigned Bonnie Lee, press confirm, that start button should disappear, and it's just changed to start button. Perfect. And if I go ahead and press this, press confirm, that should go ahead and change again to start button. Guys, super happy with that. Let's keep this going because there's still a lot we actually want to build out. The next thing I want to do is add a clear indication of when a task is actually active or when a time tracking is active. So what I'm going to do here is add a notice just by going over to the notice section, drag this up top, and I'm going to make this nice and red, just to make it very, very clear. I'm going to put danger, and I'm going to set enter. There's an active time tracking session for this work item. And you know what I can actually do here? I can add another action button and have this as the stop button again. And similar to last time, I can keep it as nice bright red so no one makes the mistakes. And the actual record is going to be run on demand workflow, and that's workflow to end. Perfect, guys. Oh, let me go ahead and delete this one I accidentally created. So we're going over here and just deleting this. And the cool thing here is I don't want to show this when there's no active projects and it wouldn't really make sense. It wouldn't really matter. I only want to show this when there is an active project, which once again, I'm going to set up a very, very similar filter. I'm going to go with the visibility, and custom rules is going to be the work items open time ID is not empty, which in this case is not. So just to give you a very, very quick demo, at the moment, there is no active session, so we have a start button. If I go ahead and press that start button and create another session, so testing #4, and we'll go ahead and confirm that, there is now an active session. I get a warning and I get that stop button functionality. If I go ahead and press any of these stop buttons, I get confirmation, and I go ahead and close that session, and I get the ability to actually start again. Very, very simple, guys, right? But now we have that time tracking ability integrated within our project management system. I'm very, very happy about this. I think this is something I can add a lot of functionality. And as we keep on progressing this series and actually moving on to be able to record and automating a payroll, this is going to be a massive function because it'll make it so easy for different contractors to come in, stop and end their work sessions, track how much time they actually spend on individual things. So overall, it's just really, really great. Now, the next thing I want to do is basically create a section for admins to have a clear overview of what each employee is actually spending time on and so on and so forth. Now, this is going to double down as two things because it's going to be the admin page, but then it's also going to be the individual contractor page. And all we're going to do here is basically filter and set up different data permissions so people should only see what they should be seeing. So, for example, as an admin or a manager, we'll set the functionality so they can see all data for different employees they're actually assigned to. However, as a contractor, I'll only put it so they can only see the data of the time trackings that's only associated to them, so they don't get confused or kind of sneak into different contractors and their pay or different things like that, because that is a bit sensitive information. So for this, I'm going to go once again to the local, and I think it'll just be easier if I just create a new page. So I'm going to press the edit button, and I'm going to go over here to new page, and this is going to be a blank page. Just keep it nice and simple so to make sure you can actually start from scratch. Now, this is not going to be the most fancy thing ever. It doesn't have to be too complicated either. I'm just basically going to choose a bunch of different charts. So I'm going to go over the charts, and for the actual charts, this time is going to be time tracking table. I'm going to go with charts. I'm going to just add a bunch of different charts. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. These are going to all be, we can leave this as stats. So I can put this as a statistic. And also, guys, I'm going to do this on the fly. You can probably optimize it better when you actually build this out properly. But for now, I just want to give you an example what you can actually do. I'm going to set all of these to 25% just so they all fill up one row. Then underneath those two, I'm going to add 2 more different charts. And these are actually going to be actual charts. So we'll leave as that. So now it's time to actually fill in this different piece of information. And hopefully you can still see this. Yeah, perfect. Cool. So for the actual charts, the first one, we can put a sum of all the amount of time, I guess. So I'm going to go over to the metric to choose, and I'm going to put total time. And for that, I'm just going to put it as sum. And this I'm going to call total time tracked. So at the moment it's only 104, which makes sense. The next one I'm going to do is average time tracked. So once again, for the metric, I'm going to choose total time, and I'm going to put average, and then I'm going to put for the chart title average time tracked. Perfect. Next one, I guess I could display how many work items we actually completed. I'll do two things. I'll do firstly show how many sessions have actually been completed. So for this, I'm going to go over to count the individual IDs, and this is going to be time tracking sessions. And then lastly, the last thing I want to do is track the amount of actual work tickets that we're actually working on. So for that, I'm going to go over to metrics, go over to the assigned work items, assign work items count, and just leave that as a summary. Oh no, actually, I want to put it as count, sorry. So that'll show the different work items that we actually have assigned to specific tickets. Or actually, put it on maximum. Yeah, so number of work items that we have for specific tickets. I think that makes sense. Maybe this one shouldn't be count. It should also be, if we're going to ID, I'll put count. Perfect. Coolio. And let's go ahead and just name this to number of work items. Perfect, guys. Nothing too complicated once again. And what I'm going to show you in a second also, I'm going to add different filters. So the employee or admin can filter this by different employees. They can filter by different dates, different projects, different things like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to these big charts right here. And I'm going to make this a pie chart. And then for the actual value here, I want to be able to track the, this is a good question actually. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over to the data and I want to be able to kind of identify the different work item type. So let's have a look. If here we can see the hourly rates, you can see total build. There's no sort of task type or work item type. So I'm just going to quickly add that in. So I'm going to put work item type. And then for this, it's going to be a single option select. I'm going to just put quickly type #1, type #2, type #3, and then type #4. Right, these are just different types of tasks, I guess. You can obviously filter this to whatever task you have in your agency. If I go ahead, add that field, and then for the time tracking table, I'm going to add another field, which is task type. And if I scroll down and actually select the field type, this is going to be a lookup. And then for the field to actually look up, we're going to do the assigned work items. And if an individual want to show, scroll all the way down to assigned work item. So now basically we'll be able to create different graphs to kind of quickly showcase which specific tasks have actually been assigned. Right, very, very cool stuff, guys. So if I go back to my application and I go over to that nice little graph we just created, which is chart 6. And for the actual X value axis now, I should be able to see that time tracking table. Let's go ahead and try reload this. Let's see. Nothing yet. It's probably because it's empty actually. So let's go back here actually. And for that specific task, I think it was tested power junctions. Go ahead and add a work item, and we'll add this for a couple of different ones as well, just to have some variety. And then if you go back here now, we should be able to see it. But let's see, maybe I've done something wrong in the setup. Assign project, assign workers, assign workers, time tracking table. Okay, so we don't see anything just yet. So what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to go ahead and quickly delete this. And I'm also going to reload my page just to make this very, very simple, guys. Because maybe I've done something wrong in the setup, but I believe everything's right. So if this doesn't work, we'll kind of work our way back. And I do think it's valuable to actually show you these different things because when you're building these applications, you're going to come across a lot of mistakes and you're going to make mistakes. So I like to include these sometimes to kind of show the thought process behind different things that I'm actually doing and how I kind of solve problems by myself. So we're back over here. I'm going to go over to charts again. I'm going to add another chart. And this one is going to be a pie chart again, and hopefully in the x-axis. Yeah, I still don't see it. However, I believe if I put time tracking, I think I was just looking in the wrong place. And for this, I'm going to put count. And then for the actual series, I choose the ID. Let's go back into the x-axis, assigned work items. This is interesting. So we do see it there, right? Task type is there. Maybe it just doesn't work for active tickets. I mean, I'll come back to this in a second. Let's finish off the other graphs. The only one I want to have is a project breakdown, I guess. So we can leave this as a pie chart as well. And then for here, I'm going to put assign project and assign project ID. So what I can do here is quickly go over to the data again, time tracking table, and just create a project name, I guess, field, just like that. And then for the task type, scroll down, have another lookup. So hopefully this one should work. And it's going to be assign project and a name. It's just going to be the actual name. So we can leave it as the project lead, I guess. No, project name. Didn't see that. Apologies. And then let me quickly actually link a couple projects. So we already have them. Okay. So if I go back to application, now this should work. I mean, once again, if it doesn't, then I'm just not in the flow today. But if I go to value, there you go. So now you can see the project name. So you probably couldn't see it because it's a specific series. And then I'm going to go over to here and display the actual number of IDs. So now we can kind of see a breakdown there from projects. And I can go ahead and label this the project breakdown. And I could include some different graphs such as total time spent, which I will, why not? So if I go over to the next one, I'm going to change this over to a bar chart or area chart, wherever you want. And for the actual, I'm going to basically just group the start time in the x-axis, just track the total time spent. And then for the time period, I'm going to group it by month. So everything should be this month, which is a bit ugly. And then simply for series one, I'm just going to choose the actual total time. I'm going to put it as a sum. So it's going to summarize total time, which obviously in December's 104, which I don't have much data at the moment because it's just December. But obviously, if you were to use it over time, you have a nice little bar chart which you can kind of utilize. But guys, that's kind of an overview. What I want to do now is quickly add filters, and then I'm going to add different data permissions so people should really see what they actually should be seeing. So first, I'm going to go to options, scroll to the bottom and add different filters. The created at date is going to be important for me, so I can filter by the different dates. I'm also going to filter this by the assigned project and the assigned workers. But for the assigned workers, I only want to show this in certain conditions. I'm going to change this so that the logged in user role name, you should leave it as that. So now, for example, I can filter by date. So I can put last 30 days, for example. I can filter by specific projects. So I don't know, Marina, for example. And I can filter by assigned workers, such as Barney Lau, which is obviously the person I was logged in previously. Cool. So this is a kind of an overview page for the time tracker. Let me just quickly change the name here. So a clear indication of what this actually is. Now, the only thing that's left to do here is being able to change this, because once again, I want to have this as a possibility for team admins to use this, but I also want to have it as a platform that different team members or contractors can actually use. And obviously, we don't want to show every single contractor all the information that's actually being made. So what I'm going to do here, guys, within the actual users tab within the application, I want to give access to everything to all team admins and managers, but not the team members. And to do that, I'm going to go over to data, scroll down to the time tracking table, and then I'm going to enable permissions, which is basically just data permissions. Think of these like filters on crack. Filters are just kind of hiding it. These are you literally not giving anyone permission. So I'm going to remove all of these apart from team member. And then the condition I'm going to put here is that they can only see records that are actually related to them. So I'm going to turn this off, add a new rule, select the data, and for the actual filter is going to be assigned workers is one of, and then here I'm going to enter a logged in user, assign working collection, and assign that. So I'll go ahead and press save now. This should work. So if I go over to app, if I'm logged in as an admin, I can see all the different time trackings. However, if I log in as a different team member, such as Stephen McDonald, same exact page, I can't see anything because I don't have any actually work tasks. If I go over to projects and I could quickly create a work task just to make sure this is working properly, we'll just enter a new task and we'll go over to start, random name, assign myself, confirm. So we have an active task right now. I'm going to let it run for a second so we actually have some time. But what we should see is in the actual tracking overview, we should only see one work item and an average of one work item. Because what we did here is just set different date permissions. And when we're creating these internal platforms, what I'd recommend doing is basically replicating this whole process for every single piece of data. So for example, contractors only see projects they're actually assigned to, clients only see their specific project and their specific task, different things like that. There's so much you can do with these internal platforms, which is why I love it so much, if you can't already tell. So if I go ahead and press stop, it's probably been a minute now. I mean, hopefully anyways, you can see we have that 1 minute by Jones. And if I go over to the tracking overview again, perfect. We have that time tracked, we have that average time tracked, time tracking sessions, number of work items, that project breakdown, and so on and so forth, guys. Honestly, I'm very, very happy with this. And once again, just to show you, if I go in back as an admin or even as a manager, and I go to the exact same page, they can't see anything. Let's see, maybe team admin. Perfect. So I'll just change that as a team admin rather than a manager, but they can see everything. They can see the project breakdown, who's doing what. And if here, for example, I can filter by different workers. So if I just want to filter this by Steven, I can do that. If I just want to see Bonnie's records, I can do that. Guys, I'm very, very happy with this. And that's basically the time tracking stuff integrated within a project management system. Now, for this section, my work is done. We've now basically built a time tracking system which is integrated within a project management platform. We have all the abilities to start time sessions, stop work sessions, and also have a clear overview of exactly what's happening. Now, I like this a lot, but there's more. The next step is basically we want to be able to automate the payroll for different freelancers and contractors, basically anyone that's paid on an hourly basis. And that's what we'll be building out in the next episode. Now, if you're early, you're going to have to wait a bit for that to come out. But if you're not early, you can check out the video in the description or in the comments, and that will be part 2 to this, where we're going to automate the actual paying of different contractors based on the time we're actually tracking within an application. I'm super excited for this, guys. Like I said, this has been a pipeline for a very long time. So in order to make sure you don't miss out any episodes or anything like that, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you get a notification whenever I actually release that episode. If you want to see more content like this, or you want to access any of the resources that I actually created in this video, you can check out the first link in the description to check out Scale Proof Community. And this is a community created that has now over 200 different established agency owners who are all looking to set up scale proof systems. Within there, we have every single resources from our YouTube videos, including the ones in this video, along with a step-by-step guide on exactly how we set up scale proof systems for our clients. Is generally one of the most useful resources that I put together for anyone on YouTube, and anyone that comes in from YouTube loves it. You know, you get access to actual community of people looking to better their agencies' backend systems, and also my team is on there. I'm on there. So if you have any questions about anything I talked about today, or just backend operations questions in general, feel free to join, and you'll get a response to some of your questions or queries about this time tracking systems or anything when it comes to agency backend stuff. Last thing I'll say, guys, is don't stop your work in here. I'd recommend checking out this video right here to give you an indication of how you can actually continue building these applications within the local. The local is a really powerful tool. There's so much you can do with it. And as you saw today, this is kind of just scratching the surface. So if you want to kind of have a complete build out, you can check out that video I showed you a second ago, where I basically go over how to create an automated sales pipeline. Apart from that, guys, that's it from me today. Let me know what you think of the new setup, just moving to a new place. I'm going to be adding some stuff in the background from going forward. So if you have any suggestions of what to add, leave a comment below. Also, let me know what you think of this hoodie. Churn Busters. I made this over the weekend. I got the idea from a client for Halloween. I had a bit of fun with it, and that's what we made. Now, I'm not selling merch, guys. Don't worry. But I hope this video is valuable. Honestly, I put a lot of time into it, and this is really the first step to it. The next part, which is going to be a bit more interesting, in my opinion, is leveraging different automations off the platform and different things like Mate.com to actually automate the payroll for these contractors. So, guys, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave any questions in the comment. And apart from that, that's it from me. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.